ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to another edition of Infection Podcast. We cover the intersection of video games and politics, which is on everybody's mind this week. My name is Nick Craig. Give me a follow on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig, or check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. Joining me back on an actual computer after weeks of meltdown, Brian with an eye Aldrich. Hey, Brian, what's going on?
It's good. It's going. I'm glad that I was kind of nervous with a laptop that it was going to overheat or something, just doing the video and everything else. But I'm glad that it seemed to have worked. I'm actually getting another one just like the one I was using as a backup from my work, because they have extra ones. So I'm gonna have that as my backup in case this computer goes down again. That way I'll have a system ready to go to plug in.
There you go. Excellent. Yeah, go ahead. What you got?
All right. Well, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter or at Brian Aldridge on the other ones, and so check it out.
So back a couple of you would assume me doing radio for a living, I'd have a better concept of time, but I really don't. So I don't know.
Well, when it's every day, that makes it tough.
So
if you're in it every day, it's hard to differentiate.
Everything is 6 months ago or last week.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot between 1 week and 6 months. There's many weeks in there. We switched our name of this show and did our rebrand. When was that? Was that 6 months ago? Close to it, maybe?
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of this year.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. So look at that. We're right on the money. And part of the reason that we did that is the show was evolving and drifting more and more, and we saw this encroachment of politics into video games, which I found to be very interesting. And Brian, if our whole show is really culminated on our topic this week surrounding Call of Duty. So this past week, and I actually covered this story on my show, I thought it was pretty interesting, out in California, Glendale area, which is just north of Los Angeles, there was a group of Hispanic and Armenian parents, who both of those groups are deeply rooted in religion, that were protesting outside of a public school in Glendale because they were having it's June, so it's gay month. Everything's got to be gay. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And the school was having some sort of pride thing where they were forcing kids to attend this pride stuff. It wasn't just putting the rainbow flag on the wall. It was like, hey, we're going to have this big celebration. So you had this group of Hispanic and Armenian parents that said, hey, this is completely against anything that we teach our children. And this is bullshit. So they protested outside of the school meeting. And to no surprise, the Los Angeles Antifa group showed up and got into it with the parents. So the parents are wrong, Antifa is right. And there was a little bit of back and forth scrimmaging on the street. So this guy Puckett, who I've known for years, not personally, but known of, he was one of the shoutcasters. If you remember back a decade ago, these guys that would call these early MLG events. His name is MLG Puckett. He's incredibly popular. So he tweeted out a video of this happening. And his response to this was, this happened 4 blocks from my Overwatch League apartment. Americans are in a sad place right now. Let people love who they love and live your own life. So that's the typical liberal approach to this. It's your kid. It's how you want to raise your children with certain values, and some seemingly childless guy that talks about video games for a living. Not that we're much better, but he is going to say, let them tell your kid whatever. Let people love who they love and live their own life. So that caused a streamer by the name of, let me see if I can get Nick Merckx. Nick relation. Merckx, yep. He's a FaZe guy. He quote tweeted this and said pretty clearly, they should leave little children alone. That's the real issue. They should leave the little children alone. That's the real issue. That was in response to Puckett's tweet. And that caused, Brian, the most unbelievable outrage in the world. So much outrage that Call of Duty, from the official @Call of Duty Twitter account, tweeted, and I quote, "Due to recent events, we have removed the Nick Merckx operator bundle from the Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone store. We are focused on celebrating pride with our employees and our community." So, Brian, I submit to you evidence exhibits A, B, C, and D. What the hell's going on?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is here, he went against what you're allowed to say. Because really, this is, as you started out talking about in the show, this is what we knew was coming. I mean, we could just see it. We knew that there was no way we could talk about the things that we saw. I brought it up early, the emperor with no clothes analogy, where everyone else around you is saying what they're supposed to say because they don't want to be, their head chopped off by the king. they want to comply. Then there's one person who says, well, that's not right, though. That's not what's happening, and pointing it out. Everyone will pounce on that one person. Boom, just like this. And he's not saying anything that's controversial, but it goes against what that radicalized leftist side is now training to attack, because that's what they do. Because the whole thing, words are violence, that we've talked about since early on. When they say words are violence, that means that when you say something they don't like, they are justified to hurt you in whatever means they can, whether that's financially, lose your job, your family, whatever they can get you to lose. They just want to hurt you because they view that you were violent towards them. And so it takes an equal return of violence. And so it's just craziness. And that's what was frustrating, is I just knew that we couldn't talk normally and get interviews with development company, or these game studios. It just would be impossible. They wouldn't talk to us, because look at what happened here. He talked normally, and look how Call of Duty reacted.
Yes,
it's pretty frustrating.
It's incredibly frustrating. Absolutely. There
was a response, though, right? Because that's something that I think is the most important thing, because
Call of Duty's response.
No. The response from his fellow, streamers, his fellow content creators.
Before you
go ahead.
Yeah,
if you need him.
Yeah. Before you get into that, I want to state how simple of a statement he made, and I just want to repeat it again, just so that we can really set. He didn't say, "I hate gay people." He didn't say Pride Month should be banned. He didn't say these people aren't real people. He didn't say you shouldn't be allowed to be gay. His tweet was, and I quote once again, "They should leave little children alone. That's the real issue." A statement like that, Brian, is the equivalent of a pride holocaust, seemingly. I mean, that is what they are attributing it to. And you look at the replies and comments, and saying, this one guy, recognizing a month is Pride Month so that kids learn to be accepting of all people from a young age. That's a good thing. No, that's not what this is about. This is not, we are past the point of acceptance. And I think that is where so many people find themselves frustrated in months like June, is it's no longer about acceptance. I accept gay people. I don't particularly care what you are. I am very much of the mindset, Brian, leave me the hell alone, and don't infringe on my life. I'm not going to infringe on you. If you want to be LGBT, if you want to be an alphabet person and be one of these things, great. I don't care. What I don't want, however, is you to shove your sexuality, no pun intended, in my face. And that is where the issue is. I am very accepting. I don't care what you are. I don't. Yeah. It doesn't bother me. That's the libertarian side of me that just doesn't care. But I do care when you take something that I'm paying for, which would be public education,
school,
and are turning it into an indoctrination system for children, which is what this does. This is not about acceptance. This is about encouraging 4, 5, and 6-year-olds to talk about sexuality, which I wasn't 4, 5, and 6 that long ago, Brian. And I don't, that was never, that's not a thing that's ever on a 4, 5, and 6-year-old's mind. They're talking about, Legos and learning basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, and just, running around and playing hide and seek and tag and just being a shithead kid, because that's what you do. And the fact that we have now taken and put sexuality in all of this stuff is incredibly concerning. And I think that is, I think, how you can boil down his statement. And it's how I feel, and it's how, obviously, the Hispanic...
I think a majority...
the Hispanic
I think a majority
and Armenian
believe
parents...
that, but they're afraid to say it because of the response by a small group. Because they use fear. I mean, look back I bring up, Nazi days a lot as in reference to what we're seeing today. But if you look at what they did with the youth, or with with very early on, when they were using the people in their clubs to sit there and go through the streets and beat up their opponents, right? This is very much that same playbook that they're doing now. If you look at what Antifa is, it's the same as all the guys in the streets that Hitler had early on before he really formed the party, to go and put fear into people. They didn't want to be attacked by the mob. They didn't want everyone coming for them. So they're gonna just let whatever happen. And these are moments like that where you have some that are standing up saying, we don't want that here. And there is too far, because there are people that will not, that don't want to have any gay people in existence here at all. I mean, there are people to that extreme, but I think that the majority of America just wants them to quit trying to push it in the schools. When the kids go to school, they don't need to be talking about sex. They don't need to be talking about personal issues. These kids don't have the ability to have a checking account, and yet you're wanting them to make these lifelong decisions. They can't get a tattoo because it's permanent, right? They can't do anything that like taking out money, that could possibly destroy their credit. I mean, they can't do any kind of contract. It's just, and you're pushing these things and these topics on them. And it used to be that if anything like this was talked about, they would write the parents. That was supposed to happen, and then they just stopped doing that. And then once they realized that there were no checks and balances, they started pushing crazier and crazier things. And this is the culmination of that.
Yeah, and now before you get into the reaction, it's also important to note the video game that is doing this. This isn't like Animal Crossing or one of these like weird games that. And I like Animal Crossing, but if you look at the average Animal Crossing player, Brian, the chart of mental illness is very high. And I'm not trying to be a mean person, but it's not that kind of game. We're talking about Call of freaking Duty. We're talking about Call of Duty lobbies that are just filled with the most nonsensical comments and attacks on people. A game that is whole audience is predominantly men who just trash talk and kill people in video games. Call of Duty is what we're talking about. Now, the reaction has been pretty interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, and one thing is, so Tim, first of all, we had Dr. Disrespect. Was that what happened first, or was it Tim?
I think they were both around the same time.
Okay, so Dr. Disrespect, he said that he was quitting Call of Duty, until something changed. He demanded that they apologize to Nick Merckx about their overreaction.
Yeah, I've got the video.
Reinstate. Yeah, let's go and play, because I haven't watched that video yet.
Yeah, this is Dr. Disrespect on his stream a couple days ago.
Is uninstall the game. Number one. I mean, don't get a mistake, this year's Call of Duty is the worst in its franchise. But that decision by COD's PR marketing team, I'll tell you right now, man. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to digest for the two-time. I feel like, A, they either need to apologize publicly to him or reinstate his bundle in order for me to consider playing Call of Duty again. That's where I'm at. We just don't...
All right, so that's about Dr. Disrespect's comments. He goes into a little bit more, but this is a guy that actually worked in Call of Duty. I mean, he was a map designer.
Yeah.
And again, his whole thing is Mustachio Man, the two-timer, the hunk video gamer, and that's the audience. And then that is what they do. So that was so Dr. Disrespect uninstalled it. He has quit Call of Duty.
one thing is they removed Nick Merck's operator bundle from the Modern Warfare 2 and the Warzone store. And yeah, and they said that and now they're focusing on pride with their employees and their community. As if he said something anti-pride. First of all, he didn't say anything anti-pride. One thing I really think that would make a big difference with all of this is if they designated the whole, the LGBT, all that stuff, that everything that you would bundle under that LGBTQ, everything, as a religious organization. If you treated them like a religious organization, it would then put stipulations on where they can preach their feelings, right? It would make it to where in schools, you're not allowed to push particular religions. There's separation between church and state, and just it would make it to where they're expected, just like in business. I don't go and talk a lot about politics. I don't talk about politics at all, and I don't talk about religion at my work because I just don't think that that's something you should have to talk about, because I don't want people judging me but why don't we designate that as kind of the same thing? You don't talk about that because that's your religion. If you're going to follow it, then you can follow it. But don't bring it to work.
Well, the reality is this is all that they have. It is their entire lives, and why I find myself so frustrated in months like June is it's just taken over everything. It's not about acceptance, as I mentioned earlier. It's about forcing you into what I don't know, but just forcing you into this idea. And it's incredibly frustrating because, as I've already noted, and I think most people are pretty accepting of others. However, I find myself very ticked off and frustrated when I can't go to the grocery store or go to a store without having to look at all of your pride garbage all over the place. It's incredibly annoying, and it doesn't mean anything. That was Dr. Disrespect's response. And Tim the Tatman, another legend in the Call of Duty space, had this to say. He put a post on Twitter. Nick Merckx has been my friend for years. We went in getting our COD operators together. It's a pack that's titled off these big streamers. It's, customized merch. It feels wrong for me to have mine and him no longer have his. In support of my friend, please remove the Tim the Tatman bundle at Call of Duty. It's interesting to note, Brian, these guys get paid on these bundles, I'm sure, a certain percentage. Yep. So Tim is saying, hey, take some money out of my pocket on this, but I'm going to stand up with my friend. It's pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, but it takes these people that are willing to stand up for, it's not necessarily morals, but stand up for their friends and say, hey, they're not saying anything wrong, and not going along with the crowd and being worried about how it's going to affect their contracts, how it's going to affect what people think of them, because you're always going to make, anytime you delve into politics, you're going to make 50% of America mad no matter what you do. Maybe even more than that, because there's extremes on both sides, and there's people that are going to get pissed off for anything. And so I think here, when just like with this show, we have people that support, because we don't sit there and we do have to limit some of what we say just because YouTube is pretty strict. But we pretty much have the freedom to say how we feel on this show, right? Sure. Where I didn't feel like we did necessarily as much when it was the H1Z1 podcast, because we didn't want to make people feel like they came and got kind of tricked. And here, let's talk politics, but we're supposed to talk about a video game. Here, I think it's going to take people continuing to support. Look at what's happened with all these companies recently, with Target, and just the amount of money that has been lost, and the impact it has had. And it's been based on people like with Bud Light saying, right, what have we said the whole time? If you want to boycott something, how do you boycott it? With your dollar. You hold back. And that's what people's been doing, right?
That was a tough one. I was exclusively a Bud Light man, Brian, and I have not had. It's been tough. I've been drinking the Miller Lite since. I have not had any Bud Light since that nonsense, and I don't envision that I ever will again. I've been drinking Miller and Yingling, and I can tell you what, it has not affected my alcohol consumption at all. It's just a different kind. So look at this. So they put out a tweet today about something completely unrelated. By the way, they have been getting absolutely ratioed on social media, which, if you're not familiar with the term of being ratioed, it's like you put out a tweet about something or a comment or a post, and it gets a bunch of comments and no likes. That's being ratioed. People are pissed about something.
Yeah.
So they put out an unrelated tweet today about something, and this is the Twitter response page. I hope kids won't have to fight for survival. Leave the children alone. Leave the kids alone. Leave the children alone. Nope, leave the children alone. Warzone sucks. Leave children alone. Leave children alone. Tomorrow we will embarrassing for you. Leave children alone. Keep people's bedrooms out of kids' classroom. Leave children alone. Activision refuses to protect children. Leave kids. I mean, Brian, it's all over the place, and this is it's having an impact. Now, I will say this: some of these boycotts I think are stupid. Some of them. Now, obviously, everybody's to each their own, but I think conservatives, they find themselves, they use these boycotts to try and prove one thing or the other. This one, and this isn't really a boycott. I mean, I already bought the game. There's no boycott for me. I mean, I gave them my money. Now I cannot play it, and I haven't been, and I probably won't. But it's not really a boycott in that regards. I wonder how this is going to play out, and if this is going to significantly hurt their sales as Season 4 starts, which Mel notes starts either today or tomorrow. And people do and will be buying that. And I have a suspicion that will cause a significant financial impact for Activision Blizzard.
Well, I think that's what's going to have to happen because the only way you're going to impact businesses like that is financially. I mean, you can write them letters. You can go stand in front of their building if you want to, holding a sign. But it's not necessarily going to change what they do. But I think if enough of these things where they have to make a hard decision because they're losing money and they're going to possibly have bad things happen, make them make those decisions. Because for instance, you saw that stream of all those Twitter comments.
Oh yeah,
Twitter's one of the only places where you could say your opinion like that.
yeah.
Most other places would delete your. They would say leave the children alone is a hate speech, and they remove the comment. Facebook would remove it. YouTube would remove it. So I really think that looking at Twitter, that's like a prime example of. I feel like so many people feel like there's everyone that so many more people feel the opposite way of them, because on every other platform they're not allowed to say these things. Just common sense statements like this, and on Twitter you can actually say it. And I think that's important, that we, realize that it's just because you don't see these things. Maybe you're seeing it on Twitter. I bet you if those other places didn't filter like they did, you'd see similar sentiments getting across on other platforms as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the larger thing here, and we're not going to go too far into it because it's just not the show for it. But the larger thing here, Brian, is the complete and total lack of any sort of dialogue that is taking place and is festering on the progressive left side of the political aisle. The party of the side of tolerance and openness and willing conversation is the side that when you make a comment like, hey, I don't want you telling my kid about gay sex in 3rd grade, and now they want to burn your house down. I think that is going to come home to roost in a pretty spectacular way. I don't know if I've used it on this show before, but I use it on my radio show all the time. I think our current political sphere, our current political climate is like a rubber band, and the left is pulling it real hard. And if anybody that's ever played with rubber bands, eventually you pull it hard enough, it not only snaps, but it shoots back in the other direction. When it does that, when it recoils. And I think that is what we are getting ready to witness. And I don't know what the catalyst of it is going to be. But, the media tried making it out as, if a bunch of, Trump supporting white supremacists were out in front of the school. Well, when you actually looked at it, it was a bunch of Armenians and Hispanics that were pissed that this stuff was being taught in their children's school. So it doesn't fit their narrative for that either. We live in. I'm very fortunate to work in a place where I get paid to do this, so I guess I have a little bit of cover, but it's only a matter of time before I quote unquote step over the line. I mean, I did a whole story this morning about a transgender cyclist, and I just called him a dude the whole time and pretending to be a woman. That's what it is. I mean, that's the lunacy of what we're dealing with. But this is coming into every single facet of your life. You cannot escape it. You cannot play Call of Duty without having some political nonsense shoved down your throat. And it's so incredibly frustrating, Brian. They have taken over the entire culture. They've done a masterful job at doing it, and because conservatives have been asleep at the wheel.
Well, and that is the problem. Is we don't treat it like a religion. To be honest, most people, don't care. They go to vote. The left looks at this thing like a religion, and they'll act like it. And so I think that we have to take it seriously. And that's where, for me, that's why with the boycotts and things, like I still don't use, that Razor brand, Gillette.
Yeah.
I still, I hold to that, because if I just don't buy them for a couple months, is that really going to make an impact? No, it's the long term. And just finding ways. And I don't like that politics drive my life like that. But if people are sitting there and trying to undermine the country that I grew up in and the beliefs that I think it should have, which I think they're totally doing by trying to debase the whole family unit and kind of devolve into this craziness that you see in the larger cities, I don't want that. And, whatever it takes for me to kind of push back, and it's just going to take a lot of people pushing back. And I think that's what we're seeing that play out right now. And luckily, these three are pushing back. These three streamers, at least, are trying to prevent this from happening to more, because if they can stop it there, because they know they're going to be next, because there are people that will say their opinion. Sometimes they're sitting there talking on Twitch for sometimes 6-8 hours a day on average. They're gonna say stuff, and they don't want to be canceled just because they say something that hurts somebody, with the alphabet's feeling. And the UJX5, thanks for the sub. He says, I love Timmy. He did the right thing in the end. And I agree. You shouldn't be afraid to say your opinion. And that's what's weird, is now we're at that point.
Oh, absolutely. And that is what you are. And you might say, and I understand that, right? Your opinion, you can push that line. And of course you can claim First Amendment this, First Amendment that, whatever. But you can have an opinion you can have an extreme opinion. I mean, I could sit here right now, Brian, and say today is Wednesday. That's an extreme opinion to have, because it's not obviously not Wednesday, it's Tuesday. But when you make a claim like, hey, maybe we should just not, leave children alone, essentially is the quote. That's not even close to an extreme opinion, but in any stretch of the imagination. Now, of course, it is for the leftist, death cult that they are, but in the grand scheme of anything else, that's not even a right-wing opinion. That would be very much deemed as a moderate opinion. And it has been taken and blown out of proportion to fit a political narrative, fit a political agenda. Well, and it's pretty disturbing.
Look, Melbo in chat, he brings up, look at how much Disney lost. And if you look at the things that Disney was putting into their shows and how much they were pushing all of this, now that's extreme. The fact that they're taking
that is extreme.
And just everything that they put out is funneled through that perspective. That is the primary thing that they were felt was most important, was that. That's an extremist view. And so rather than saying, well, let's put out some that reach that audience, and then we'll have our general shows, they could put out specialty shows. They didn't do that. Like almost every single product that they had went LGBTQ, or had something to do with it. It was pushing something with it, or was pushing something just with with whatever, changing cultures of people, races of people. It's just everything. They were hell bent on. For them, it was a religion. Whoever's in that department that was making those decisions, they were adamant about it. And we're not adamant. I think that's what we have to be, is adamant about this stuff.
Yeah. USAF Zombie says there's a significant difference between being gay is okay and you must learn to be this so you don't become a Republican. And that's the indoctrination side of it that you're seeing parents revolt against. And the left is losing the war on this in terms of without getting too much into the political side of it, but they're losing the war on this because the vast majority of parents think that this is absolute nonsense. And it's the overwhelming majority. It's not 51%. I would argue that number is in the 70s, if not 80% of parents think that this is the most ridiculous, stupid BS that they've ever seen before. It is woefully unpopular. And it's why you're seeing public school enrollment continue to dwindle. You're seeing more states like Florida and North Carolina pass bills that allow families to use money that would go to the public school system to send their kids to a private school or some sort of charter school hybrid. You're seeing that push because this stuff is ridiculous. This is it is the left is losing the culture war on this argument. The same way that the right loses the culture war in terms of abortion. The Republicans just can't win the argument. They never have been able to. They never will be able to. However, I think abortion doesn't necessarily affect everybody's life as much as public school does, because anybody that has a child is sending their kid, vast majority of them, to public school. It's a much larger pool of people to get riled up. I'm incredibly disappointed in this with Call of Duty. It's not a surprise. They've tried pulling some of this leftist crap in the years past. It's just never been this egregious, and it makes me wonder. It'll be probably another 5 months or so before we get the new Call of Duty. I'm not sure. I've always been the COD guy. Yeah. You know that. I've been an unabashed COD fanboy. This really pisses me off. This really pisses me off. And I'm not. I don't think I'm going to do it.
Well, and that's the thing, and I think that's the part that we really need to focus on is it's going to impact them. And if you look at the economy that we've been having lately, we cover the economy every week or two. We'll talk about what's happening, layoffs that are happening in the company. And it's happening still. A lot of these companies are struggling financially. EA laid off 2/3 of their Fire Monkey studio here recently. And they're probably very similar to Activision as far as how they're being impacted. Pixar is laying off 75 people. Now, I don't think they're a huge company when it comes to, I think they have some people that are doing a lot of things, but
Pixar's
that's
massive.
But I wonder how of their animation team. I wonder what this is a percentage of that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I thought because I was just thinking that they're not a huge 75. I think is still a decent size to them. I don't know if they have like 1,000 or 2,000, something like that. Oh, here we go. No, here gives a better idea. So they're set to eliminate 7,000 jobs to result in a reduction of operating costs by $5.5 billion. So they have a lot of employees. So they're looking to remove 7,000 people.
Yeah, I say Pixar's a massive company. Well, that's Disney.
So yeah, because
Disney's losing 7,000 jobs.
Oh, okay. Then no, these guys are 75. So I don't see in here how big they are.
Yeah, no. So Disney is doing a massive cut. Pixar is a Disney studio. They're shedding 75 jobs from Pixar. Pixar's probably got a couple hundred employees.
Well, probably they're just out. They're probably Disney wide. They're shedding 7,000 in the exactly. Pixar section of it. It's 75. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was looking to see how many are. I don't see how many people they have, but it's about 1,200 employees. So there you go. So they have about 1,200 employees. And that's sad, but that's the economy we're in. And then when we say, okay, make decisions sometimes based on how companies are acting with politics, the same thing is when you go to vote, think about what the politicians are doing, how that's affecting your pocketbook, your day-to-day life. I mean, I just look at how with all the money that's being spent and how much the dollar is just being devalued, that affects my everyday life. So to me, it's important that you vote people in that have the same mindset so they can push back on that. Because me just being mad about it, does that change anything? Problem is people have to do something. They can't just be mad about it and say I'm mad about it and change the logo like the left likes to do on their profile. Add it, add a flag or add a shade or add a border, whatever you want to do. Make it to the street, enact that change to where when you go to vote or when you go to make purchases or decide who you're going to support in whatever way, look at these things. How are they negative? Because we talk about in chat being a libertarian. A number of people have brought it up. You brought it up. That's that mentality. Is I'm gonna not try to push my everything that I think on you, but I expect the same from you. That's what I think. Yeah, there we go. What if we were all just a little more libertarian? Says USA FZ Zombie.
If I'm being honest, I think that's what this is going to do. Right, when you there's this idea in politics. Well, it's not just in politics, but it's used very well in politics. It's known as the Overton window, and it's a sliding scale, and it shifts along the boundaries. And the window is what we're in right now. It doesn't have the context of the whole thing. If you go from 0 to 100 in the Overton windows between 20 and 40, it doesn't have the context of anything else. And this window moves and shifts with the times. And I believe personally, and I think I could say it with pretty good authority. I mean, this is what I do for a living. This window is shifting further and further to the right because people are just completely objecting to this woke garbage that is being pushed into every single. I mean, you probably can't even go to McDonald's without seeing a gay pride event or something like that. It's everywhere, and it's so egregious and so over the top. It's go back to the point that USAF made about it's not just about acceptance. It's about you must also be this too. If not, you're a bigot. Like, oh, you're a straight guy. You're a bigot because you're not gay. What? Wait, that doesn't make any sense. No, that's what it is. It's a cult. I mean, that's essentially what I don't think that's an inaccurate word to use. It's a cult.
That's why
Brian.
It's a religion. It's a religion. And
Absolutely.
That's the thing is you're kind of pushing back against a religion. Another one here we have Embracer Group. They've announced a set of layoffs because I guess they had a deal that a $2 billion mystery deal that ended up collapsing. And so they were planning on that. Yeah. And so now they've announced major layoffs and studio closures at Embracer Group. So this is something that is affecting the people that are working at these companies tend to be ultra left people, or at least they're living in a place where everything is left. But the politics are left. I mean, everybody thinks everyone else thinks left. So I think that this year, when they lose their jobs, then they move out to places like Idaho and North Carolina and places like that. And that's the frustrating thing is you see the problems that they're running away from. They're sitting there and pushing in your places. And here, that's the kind of the downside of all these layoffs of this tech industry is it's pushing all these people out to places that are used to be conservative, and it's changing those places. Boise's changed dramatically here. I mean, it's people. I have someone from California here who said they moved here, and they said when they go to that part of to the side of Boise, that it feels like California now.
Now, fortunately, we are. You guys are in a pretty rough spot. I mean, you're literally right next door to California, so the tap is seemingly wide open. We're a little bit.
Well,
more
even
insulated.
Washington. I mean, even Washington's super liberal.
We're a little bit. We've got some buffers here in North Carolina and South Carolina. We got Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. There's a lot of stuff up there. It's not like you just hop one state and you're there.
We're surrounded.
You're absolutely completely boxed in. You're surrounded. We're fighting back against it a little bit, and this state is actually becoming more and more red, and so is Florida. Funny enough, which is interesting in its own, but. Call of Duty, to just put a nice little bow on all this, a gay pride bow. Call of Duty doesn't seem to be backing down. They've had this is days ago. This happened back late last week, and they had the opportunity to apologize and step up against it. But as they said, they're busy celebrating Pride, which I think is ridiculous. If I'm a stockholder, I want you busy making video games. I don't want you busy talking about sexuality. And they're gonna stick with it. So
well, Bud Light did the exact same thing, right? Bud Light, I thought after the huge backlash would have made a statement, would have said something to say, hey, that's not, we're pushing, we don't want to get into politics. We want to just, drink beer, whatever it is they wanted to say.
Yes,
they
that's exactly all I wanted to do. That's all I ever wanted to do was just drink beer.
Yeah, and if they would have come out with a statement saying, we didn't mean to offend people, we're not trying to promote anybody's lifestyle, whatever it is, they didn't do that. They went radio silent, and luckily that didn't work. And I think the same thing here. They're probably just going to act like nothing's wrong. I mean, you can't come back and say anything back on Pride Month, right? that'd be sacrilege. I just think that this whole just sit it out, make them see that doesn't work. Just like Bud Light's saying, it doesn't work.
Well, and I think again, you look at the clientele of Call of Duty, a bunch of middle-aged to teenage dudes. It's not probably the argument where they're like gung-ho for all this gay pride garbage. Just in my experience, and I would consider myself a subject matter expert in Call of Duty. I've wasted years of my life playing it. I don't think that's that's not their base clientele. So, Brian, this one hurts. The Bud Light hurt.
Yeah.
This one hurts. This one hurts a lot more. I could drink something else, and I did, and I have been. Battlefield sucks. I don't like Battlefield. So this one hurts at a pretty high level. So we'll continue to track what's going on there. What else are you following this week?
All right. Well, let's go something a little more lighthearted. First of all, let's start out. Iran had this quantum processor that they were showing off and saying that they reached a
look at this thing.
Some sort of they reached some sort of a breakthrough with this. It ended up being a $600 dev board.
It looks like a Beagle boat.
Quantum. Yeah, it's a dev board. I mean, it looks like a little computer. It's a mini PC is what it looks like.
Like a big Raspberry Pi. I mean, you even look at the audio ports on it. I mean, no quantum computers got 3.5 millimeter speaker outputs. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so
look at the heat sink.
You can buy. I know. Yeah, quantum. And you can go buy this for $589 on Amazon. So if you want to get the same processor power that Iran has, you're more than welcome to go check that out.
Wow.
Last week, here's a quote. Last week, Iranian Rear Admiral Habibullah Sayari announced Iran had built a breakthrough quantum processor that can detect surface vessels using quantum algorithms. So, and then he showed the page on Amazon where that's where you can buy it for $589.
Oh, it's literally a Z board. Yeah, I'm familiar with this company. Yeah, they make dev boards.
Yeah, that's their quantum.
So it's a dual core. It's a dual core ARM Cortex A9. So it's a very.
It's a mobile processor.
It's got half a gig of DDR3 memory. Very slow memory.
But they're using it to detect surface.
Well, look at this though. $49 for 12 months, and that sucker's yours.
Hey, maybe that's how they got. They got the government special on that. Well, they're not the only ones doing this sort of thing. China kind of ran into a similar issue, and I know we'd mentioned this a little bit, but they have their.
Did you see this? They have back in 2020. They claimed they made a remote COVID detector. Did you know this about Iran?
Okay, but here's the problem. It ended up being that there was a guy who sold those to him. They're a total scam. They didn't.
Oh, no shit.
Didn't, I think
what
that was
the
this
Iranian
one.
government doing?
What? No. This was a wireless bomb. It was something like this, but they sold it to Iran. Maybe it was this one, but it ended up being a total scam.
Wow.
Somebody told them that they could detect this, and who knows. But yeah.
I mean, how incompetent do you have to be? I mean, it's not like we have the internet where we can check any of this stuff.
I know.
Wow.
Well, they don't have the internet to check
I had to bring that up. That's pretty egregious.
So China has made their own processor that they're pretty proud of.
Yeah.
And it ended up, it's just a rebadged, as they call it, Intel 10th generation Comet Lake chip. And so it's not even a chip that they've developed. They're just having Intel. They're getting Intel dies and
old
making
Intel
chips
dies.
And announcing them to be these Power Star. So kind of crazy. If you look at there's a picture of them side by side, and they look pretty much identical, other than the metal is a slightly different color.
Yeah. So they're just putting a different heat. They're putting a different IHS on it, a different heat spreader. But it's an Intel chip.
Something of a different material or color.
Yeah.
Other than that, they're identical. So kind of sad that the problem is they feel like they can steal. And who knows? I would assume that it is, maybe Intel didn't make them. They said rebadged. So I'm not thinking that this is something that they just have made on their own.
No, absolutely not. They're just taking
actually had Intel.
No, they're taking
them.
old Intel chips and putting a different IHS on it. Before it was announced that this was just an Intel chip, this was a huge story because it was China making their own x86 based processors, which is massive. That's a huge deal.
Because Intel wasn't allowed to make processors inside that country because of that. They took money from that deal, right? Didn't they take money from Biden's CHIPS Act? And if they did that, they're not allowed to sell directly to China. That was part of that deal. And so instead of selling Intel chips to China, they're making specialty chips under a different brand for China. And so they've definitely, we have a pretty weak government right now, so it's not like they're going to do anything about it. But it seems like they're really trying to subvert the restrictions of the CHIPS Act by doing this.
Yeah, no question.
And then maybe that's why they didn't want to mention that it was Intel, because Intel's not supposed to be selling them chips.
Well, and the question is Intel selling them these chips or not? Or how
are they getting? Or are they making an identical clone? They could have just taken the chip, reversed, created the board, and just made everything identical. I mean, they look exact. So that's the only reason I think they think it's a rebadge.
It's possible. But yeah, it's definitely possible. I'm not sure what they're doing, but it's just a 10th gen Intel chip. That's all it is. So nothing all that special.
Yep. So it's kind of like the Cold War, where we were trying to prove to Russia how advanced we were with missiles and with technology and rockets. And this is kind of that same thing of them trying to say, hey, we keep up with America. I mean, look at the crazy stuff that North Korea does, that their leader does. It tells them that they're all modern and, everything. But they're putting out rockets. I mean, they're definitely doing lots of shows of force there. And I think this is them kind of, for China, trying to say, we don't need America. We can do this on our own, or we don't need companies linked to, I guess, NATO countries is really what it kind of comes down to. We don't need them. And in the end, they really do, because they're not making them on their own. They don't have the technology to do it. So. All right. Do you care where we go from here? We got about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, a little over 10 minutes. No, I'm open to anything.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about Amazon here for a few minutes. There's been some controversy here on Twitch because of some guideline changes.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it led to some backlash here, and so they have their new branded content guidelines. And as defined by Twitch itself, branded content relates to any content produced by streamers featuring products or services based on an exchange of value. So, when they're, doing product placement or reads, or I assume that would kind of fall under that as well.
Any sort of advertising that is not being generated
playing a new video game, and taking money in exchange for it, which happens a lot with the streamers. Drinking a certain drink, advertising a clothesline, wearing those clothes on purpose in front of the stream. It's all branded content. So, however, it's crucial to note that Twitch, the Amazon-owned streaming platform, holds the cards. So they said, we recognize the streamers want to collaborate with brands, but as outlined in the terms of service, we maintain the exclusive right to sell, serve, and display advertisements on the Twitch service. That's what the new policy says.
Well,
which really goes against the way that a lot of these streamers have been making money.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I understand that. I mean, the reality is Twitch
they're providing you with a lot of service. Yeah,
Twitch is getting cut out of all these deals. They're happening, they're streamer to company, and they show some of their permitted formats that they will allow. So, they've got this guy's got a bunch of soda pops or something in the background, a bot including a promo link endorsing a product or service or playing a sponsored game. So they've got some permitted formats for doing some of this. And then they show some things that are not permitted. and not allowed, which I find to be very interesting. So take a look at this little sheet, this little one-sheeter here. So they've got two different things. Formats permitted with limitations. On-stream branding overlays are limited to 3%. So you can't put a massive Intel logo on as an overlay on your stream. That it's got to be limited to 3% of the screen size, which I don't even know how the hell you calculate that. I mean, that's 3%. I mean, I'm sure there's a calculation. That just seems like a lot. Formats limited or not allowed. Streamers may not insert video ads directly into their stream. So the way that we play like our intro and outro, if that was an ad, we are not able to do that. Those have
They're
to be
showing
done
even
through Twitch.
lower thirds, right?
Well, this is a whole video. Yeah, this would be playing a video, like
a
essentially
pop-up.
Yeah, well, yeah, you put a video in OBS and play it for 60 seconds. It's an ad.
Yep.
Burned in display ads. So this is what you're describing, a lower third
like a
that's
lower
got
third.
advertising on it, or an audio card, which they're also calling a burned in ad if it's a music or something of that regard. So, this to me, again, as I noted, I understand Twitch wants to, get every penny that they can, but this is stupid. You're just going to piss off a bunch of streamers. And, people were posting on social media and saying, well, Twitch, how the hell are you going to allow the Overwatch League to continue to run their stuff? This has got sponsorships all over it.
They're gonna have, probably have to work something out. I assume that's what Twitch wants, is for them to be brought into that deal.
Yeah,
because they're using their service to stream all this, but they get to show an ad.
Are.
So I don't know why they're super concerned.
Well, and that's the issue, is that they're already making money on the ads. I can understand certain things like you not being allowed to play in video stream ads. That, to me, it makes some sense. If you're going to run an ad on your channel, they want you to run it through their ad platform. I get that. But lower thirds and 3% logos, I feel like at this point we are just trying to we're nitpicking a bunch of issues for seemingly no reason and continuing to castrate streamers.
Yeah, and they kind of do it to them. I mean, they're doing it to themselves. What they really needed to do is adapt and come up with how people are making money on streams. How do you also make money on streams without restricting them and limiting them? Elon Musk is making a claim that Twitter can be a rival to Twitch. And one thing that they did to show that recently was the What is a Woman stream that they did. What a way to show the capabilities of your data center and that you can handle large streaming. Streams from that was a huge source. I mean, hundreds of millions of streams, I think, that they did of that movie in one day, 24 hours.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
So if they could come up with a way to find people and to categorize it, which I'm sure they could, they would do almost the exact same thing that Twitch does in the end.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's interesting to note that there was some pushback on this, Brian, as you can imagine, and Twitch responded. They put out this thread on Twitter a couple days ago saying, today's branding content policy update was overly broad. This created confusion and frustration, and we apologize for that. We do not intend to limit streamers' ability to enter into direct relationship with sponsors, and we understand that this is an important part of how streamers earn revenue. We want to clarify our existing ads policy that was intended to prohibit third-party ad networks from selling burned-in videos and display ads on Twitch, which is consistent with other services. We missed the mark with the policy language, and we will rewrite the guidelines to be cleaner. Thank you for sharing your concerns, and we appreciate your feedback, blah, 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 blah. So, obviously, that didn't work. Outrage won.
Yep.
At least for
and
right
they're gonna back up. This is the same thing that happened with the whole D&D community. I mean,
sure.
You remember when I brought that up? You might have wondered, why is he bringing up D&D? But it was definitely a cultural war in the end. Once you saw how it played out, people pushing back, not liking how they were trying to enforce their religion on everybody in D&D, which is really what it came down to in the end. Here, they saw that people weren't happy because they already take a huge percentage of a lot of the things that, the ways that they have to give you money inside of Twitch, they take a large percentage of already. They roll ads, in midstream ads whenever they want on your service, or you can pay a subscription to be able to get around those. I think they can be pretty loose because no matter what, if people are just using their service, they're going to make money doing the ads, and so they're not really at that much of a loss. It does make sense for them, kind of like what I think the D&D one, they almost went too far and open source the whole thing. Here, I'm sure they'll come back with something that is not controversial at all. And that's what they should do. I like less restrictions. Quit trying to nitpick what I do on. We get nitpicked on YouTube. We get nitpicked on Twitch. Don't say this, don't say that. There's enough restrictions on them on how they can make money. Just make it to where it's easier to make money if you're going to continue to put those fees on top.
Yeah, well, and the reality is, for the big guys, this doesn't matter, but for everybody else, it does. And there's a very small portion of Twitch streamers that are very profitable. Everybody else is making just a couple of bucks. So this stuff is really important for them. But I do understand Twitch's point of, they don't want third-party ad networks coming in, cordoning off these streamers and then selling video ads on top of Twitch that are inserted inside the video at the ingest point of the stream. That is a problem, and I agree with that. And I'm fine with them wanting to do that. But those whole guidelines were so ridiculously broad, and I'm glad that they changed that.
Yeah,
So,
and because they're going to have competition, and because if Elon is able to get people to take that, create a section that mimics Twitch, if the streamers feel like they have more freedom and they have the ability to make money on there, then there's going to be real competition where Twitch is going to have to really look at how much they're charging, how are they going to, because they've already had competition from YouTube, but there aren't
Facebook.
really, there's kind of and Facebook, but there's similar restrictions. People still feel restricted. I think Twitter will be the place where you can go and stream edgy content if you want to. And if you don't like it, don't watch, because there's not very many places to really do that. And by edgy, I don't mean pornographic, which is what Twitch is pushed towards. I mean, just, being able to say your opinion or have someone come on your show, interview them, and not worry about them saying their opinion and getting getting a strike, which is very common. I mean, they could say almost anything and get a strike pretty easily.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think that give a place where people can do interviews. I think it'll really open up the content that you start to see, because I feel like YouTube has gotten really boring in a lot of ways because of how much they limit what you're allowed to have on there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much hope that Elon is going to do that. And now if he does, it needs to be a separate app, and they need to kind of separate it.
Or a whole new section of it that you can get through.
I'm just thinking about if I'm on my
else.
phone and I want to watch a Twitch stream, a Twitch video game stream, I'm also gonna probably also want to browse Twitter at the same time, or make it so that the integration is seamless. But yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I got one other Amazon thing I was just going to mention really quick.
Yeah.
The Luna, they're sunsetting. The Luna is their streaming device, so that's their video game streaming device or service.
Yeah.
And they're setting their Windows and Mac apps. So they're going to still have an app for Fire TV, but they're not going to be doing anything for those because they're going to make it totally in browser. So if you have a browser, so that you'll be able to pretty much run it from almost any device as long as it has the ability to open up something like, I assume, a Chromium type of a browser and do it through that way. They're going to have iOS and Android. You'll still be able to get the app for, and that includes the Fire TV store. But outside of that, if they're able to have a browser, then that's how you'll access theirs, which makes sense. That's a much better way to do it. Trying to keep up with all kinds of different hardware means a lot of times that you're limited on where you can be. And there's the technology of what they're able to do in web browsers is so amazing nowadays. They could make a very good app inside of a browser.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that how Stadia ran? Wasn't Stadia in browser?
No, I thought they had their streaming devices.
Yeah, but I thought if you played on Windows,
I don't know if there's a way.
I thought you played it in browser on computer. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the test. Because don't you remember they did that test before it was called Stadia, and there was like an Assassin's Creed game? I could have sworn I did that in browser, but maybe I downloaded something. I don't remember.
I don't know, and I wish I would have had some hands-on. Yeah, it looks like maybe they had a Chrome browser in there, so
Yeah.
possibly that's what they're. I just never used one to really know, how the launch process.
Yeah. Well,
Almost
I think
nobody's used one, so
with the addition of HTML5 and some of the frameworks in there, I
Mm-hmm.
think it makes perfect sense to just allow literally any device from a from a desktop to a Chromebook to a smartphone to a smart TV to be able to use these services. It's a very, very smart idea.
Well,
You
and
don't
we
have to
just
deal
about
with
have
apps.
worldwide internet as well. I mean, if you look at what they've been able to do with Starlink, you pretty much have internet service everywhere. So there's not really that excuse, having it to where these remote streaming services are making more sense in that way because everybody can pretty much get the internet now. The economy may be something, or whether or not that place can afford to have something like that is a whole nother question. But everyone in the whole world has access to the internet for the first time ever. And so I think that that's where here, these kind of services to places like that where they don't want to have the hardware, but if they can have anything that can run a modern web browser and have a little bit of speed behind it, the processing is happening somewhere else. People can play all the most recent games. I mean, it totally makes sense, especially to places that are playing on mobile or have limited resources. This stuff is great for them, and so I like where it's going. But I'm waiting to see with the family plan still needs for me. No, it still needs to be released in the United States. They've released it in a number of other places, but my kids can't take advantage of the Xbox streaming service, which would be perfect for them because they don't have to download a bunch of games because they haven't released it here. But I think once you see that family plan come out, I think you'll start seeing a lot of people taking advantage of the Xbox streaming because they have to buy an account for their kid right now for them to take advantage of it. You have the parents have one. You have to buy an account just to be able to have them stream. That doesn't always make sense. So hopefully we'll start seeing streaming take off once that happens.
Absolutely. All right, Brian, where can folks find you online?
All right. Well, you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, or Truth Social. If you want to check out my blog, biteoftech.com, or go check out our website, infectionpodcast.com. If you go to the upper right-hand side, make sure you join our server on Discord, where we have a show news channel. Perhaps there's a topic that you think we should be covering. Throw a link to in the show news channel and we'll review that before the next live show. If you want to watch us, you can do that through Twitch, YouTube, or Rumble. If you want to listen on the lower right-hand side, you can do that on a lot of different platforms or devices. Just pick whichever one's the most convenient. Now, those are recorded and then uploaded after the show is done, so that's not live. But if you are listening, that means that the show notes have been added to the website as well. So if you go to that particular episode, there will be a built-in audio and video player and also links for everything that we discussed throughout that show so that you have the ability to go and follow along. Maybe if you're listening, catch a video and see things that we were watching on the video form of the podcast. If you want to support us, you can do that up top in the support menu or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Absolutely. Brian, thank you so much as always. Thanks to our friend UGX Vibe for hitting us up with the resubscription here during the show, and everybody for joining us here at chat. Great comments as always. We'll hopefully see what goes on, maybe a little more backlash on Call of Duty and whatnot, and we'll have it all for you here next week. Brian, as always, thank you, sir, and we will see you.
See you later.
Alrighty, folks, that's going to do it. If that wasn't enough political news for you, well, I do it as a day job. Check out the Wilmington's Morning News Podcast anywhere you get your shows, and you can check it out at nickcraig.com. I'm encroaching 1,000 followers on Twitter, so give me a follow over there at Nicholas M. Craig. If you missed any portion of our show, visit our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.